All right, let's wrap this up. Welcome back to October Scaries. We're going to talk about the last movie on the list of 7 movies that I've been watching, The Silence of the Lambs. The Silence of the Lambs is the classic on the list. The Silence of the Lambs is one of those movies that I have heard references to in pop culture. So I grew up with, hearing about it, hearing elements from the movie, but I had never seen the movie myself until this month. So it's about Clarice Starling, who is an FBI trainee. Her boss recruits her to interview Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who is a psychiatrist, a very intelligent psychiatrist who has been in holding for like 8 years because he is also like a psychopath. He's a serial killer, cannibalistic serial killer. He be eating people. And so she's tapped to interview him because Crawford is hoping to gain some insight into a current serial killer named Buffalo Bill, who is going around snatching women up and skinning them. I didn't watch a trailer. Like, it's a classic, so I just put it on the list based off of that. I didn't watch a trailer. I did not expect this movie to be a procedural, to we're on the case and trying to solve a case. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. I really liked the storyline. I think it was a strong case. I think Clarice is a great character. Hannibal's a great character. I see why this movie has survived for as long as it has, why it didn't get lost in the annals of time. So let's talk about Clarice first. Like I said, she's a great character. She's smart. She's quick. She's witty. You also see that she's a little bit out of her element. Clarice is a woman entering a man's world. She's this woman who is bursting their bubble. So they're super aware of her presence. And in turn, she is super aware of herself in the fact that she's often the only woman in the room. She is often the only female voice in the room. It's interesting that Clarice is having a very singular experience. She is very aware of the environment that she's in. But at the same time, the movie doesn't show her talking to Ardelia about any of it. We don't see her relating to Ardelia in that way at all. I wonder what kind of experience Ardelia was having as a Black woman who is entering this white male dominated space. But her and Ardelia relate to each other purely on a professional level, and nothing personal at all. And the whole woman breaking the mold thing is only reserved for Clarice, even though there's another woman in the movie. It's also interesting because the woman who gets kidnapped is the daughter of a female senator. So it's ground has been broken, progress has been made, but not everywhere, right? You have the FBI, you have Quantico, where still very male dominated and male centered. It's interesting to read that The Silence of the Lambs did so much. It opened the doors for a slate of strong female characters, and as well as strong female characters in law enforcement, procedural type movies and shows. And it also spawned a lot of crime procedurals. The movie feels very regular watching it in 2024, which is a good thing because it means some progress has been made. I read on this article from Vox that you can draw a straight line from Clarice to Scully on the X-Files, Clarice to Olivia Benson on Law and Order SVU. Hannibal himself is a great character. He is super creepy, super scary. The way he talks, his affectations.
Hi, my phone ran out of space, so I had to restate a lot of the points that I'm making right here. But one thing I forgot to restate about Hannibal himself is that Hannibal reads as one of the girls. Between the way he was reading Clarice about her shoes, her place of origin, her sense of style, him telling the senator, love the suit, and some other things that I don't remember anymore, he reads as either gay or bi, and I do like reading him that way. For me, it kind of makes some of the stuff with Buffalo Bill. It eases some of the stuff with Buffalo Bill. Yes, they're both killers, but there's an intentionality if both of them, and not in a negative way, if both of them are part of the community. Just the way he is acted, the way he talks, and some of the things that he focuses on. back to the original timeline.
One thing I love about this movie, as well as other movies that I've watched from the 70s, the early 90s, including The Brood, which is also on this list, is that they take their time, right? They're interested in like the story and developing the story and like setting up the atmosphere. They're not prioritizing scaring you. They're not prioritizing getting a reaction out of you. And I say that because it's not until 30 minutes to an hour into the movie that we see Hannibal in action. The movie and the movie leaves something to the imagination, right? It's not like, oh, we have the budget, so we're gonna show you like scary on top of scary on top of scary. I'm thinking of this scene where I think it's Dr. Childen is telling Clarice, or maybe it's Crawford, somebody is telling Clarice about what Hannibal did to a nurse, I think, and they show her a picture of what was left of the nurse, or like the what happened. And I'm waiting for them to pan to the picture and show us. And they don't. And then at the end of the movie, you have, well, before the end of the movie, the scene where the autopsy is being done on the woman, one of the women that they find. They don't like zoom in and show you like, oh my god, how horrible. Like, we're kept back a little bit as the audience, and the like body is given some privacy. And then you have the end, because I was waiting for him to get Dr. Childen. You could tell me we weren't gonna see that on the screen, but instead they fade to black, and you just see him stalking his dinner. The rest of it is left up to your imagination based on what they've already told you about Hannibal and what we have seen him do, okay? Him flaying that man and turning him into an angel, that cop. The face mask, very effective. There's an effectiveness to older horror thrillers that I think is lacking in a lot of the modern day ones. One of the most tense moments in the movie is when Clarice is inside Buffalo Bill's house, and you know she's in the dark, and he has the night goggles on, and he's like reaching out for her, and his hand is just like ghosting over her. So well done. Another thing this movie does that I acknowledge I see, is that it uses, in terms of Buffalo Bill's character, it uses people's, I mean, I can imagine this movie came out in 1991. It uses people's not agonies, the word left my mind. Their uneasiness, their anxieties about the trans identity. It takes the fear that they have, and it exaggerates it by making Buffalo Bill a serial killer. Because, you know, what do people say about trans people to this day in 2024? Trans women specifically. They're men pretending to be women. They're men who want to be women. They're men who are jealous of women or who hate women. And so you have Buffalo Bill, who tried to have gender reassignment surgery, was rejected because he is so loco. He wasn't fit, was rejected, and so he turns to murdering women and taking their skin. He has standards though, because he's not gonna have dry skin, so he tells them to put the lotion on their skin or else they get the hose again. He's not gonna be dry out. He's gonna be well moisturized. And so he's taking their skin to wear. There's a tucking scene. Like, the movie uses that thought, that idea that trans people, trans women, and gay people are perverted and deviant. It leans on that for this movie. It does do its due diligence by, you know, through the conversation between Hannibal and Clarice, where, you know, both of them are saying like, yeah, trans people, or I think they may have used the word transvestite, I don't remember, but they're saying trans people, you know, a lot of them are very, very gentle and very soft. Like, it's not what people think at all. So, like, that's good, because at least they're aware of what they're doing. Nevertheless, they're still playing with an identity that is not well represented. And when it is represented, it's stuff like this. No trans people got paid, but the Buffalo Bill character, you know, it wasn't played by a trans actor. And even, you know, with the director saying that Buffalo Bill is not supposed to be trans, which I'll get to, you still have a gay man, right? So if he's not trans, if he's not a trans woman, if she's not a trans woman, then that's a gay man, right? He had a lover. What was his name? I don't remember what, but the person whose head, the man whose head was in the, was being preserved, that was his lover. So he's gay. Either he's gay or he's trans. Like, it's still the LGBTQIA queer/queer community that you're playing around with, that you're leaning on as part of what's uncomfortable about this movie. Again, thinking about the fact that this came out in 1991. And so, again, the same article in Vox references the fact that, films like Psycho, The House with the Laughing Windows, Dress to Kill, and Sleepaway Camp, this movie was part of like a trend, especially when Dress to Kill came out in 1980, Sleepaway Camp came out in 1983, Silence of the Lambs came out in 1991. Those two movies aren't that far away from it. And so it was a little bit, I think, of like using what you've seen before and incorporating it into this movie. The director, I did not write down his name, but he has been receptive to the criticism. The Vox article says that like he has both defended his decision as well as apologized. So he's done both. He insists in this article from HuffPost that was published in 2014, Buffalo Bill did not wish to be another gender. He didn't really have a sexual preference. Being trans is not a sexual preference. It's a gender identity. He says Buffalo Bill loathed himself. He wanted to transform himself so that there was no sense of him in the new him, and becoming a woman, that was his method of doing it. The man is not... I don't know. This explanation doesn't make any sense. He is not cis, nor is he straight. And his only interaction with women is one of loathing, but also like a means to an end. Like he tucked his thing away. He wanted to be reassigned another gender. That's it. That's all. So I like, on the one hand, like I see that it did that with like using this fear, but it didn't subvert it in any way. That's the thing. It didn't subvert this fear. It didn't take this fear and turn it back on the viewer. It played it straight, pretty much. Like, you have the insertion of like, trans people are pretty like gentle and not violent at all. And Hannibal says Buffalo Bill is something else entirely. But there is no subversion. It is exactly what it is. So there's that. Buffalo Bill himself as a character, I think he's a good villain. He's very, very creepy. He is in his own world. And that is all. I don't have any gripes with the Silence of the Lambs, even with this decision that they made with Buffalo Bill. I really don't have any gripes. And nevertheless, I give it a 3 out of 5. It's really good, but it didn't blow me away. Like I said, it was very effective, but at the same time pretty regular, which I think is a good thing. And that wraps up October Scaries for this year. So I ranked the movies, if anybody's curious. I was ranking the movies as I watched them. So 7 movies. So starting from number 7 to number 1, The Brood is number 7. The Descent is number 6. The Platform 2 is number 5. The People Under the Stairs is number 4. Number 3 is this movie, The Silence of the Lambs. Number 2 is The Platform. And number 1 is Barbarian. It is the best movie on this list. Thanks for watching, and I will do this series again next year, God willing.